Hey everyone, my name is Anthony Budd, and today I'm going to be doing another video on my project, the Express.ts API template. I know I did a video on this about a week ago, but I really am not impressed with it, having looked back on it, so I'm just going to try and make another kind of unscripted video where I go over the setup and some of the functionality. The history of this project is I made it about 8 years ago when I was working at LegalZoom, and the idea is that I want to build a project which has all of the basic functionality that every SaaS solution and REST API needs, so I don't have to reinvent the wheel every time I make a new project. That's things like auth, so that's your login, sign up, password reset, but also things like MFA. And then there's other parts as well. So things like pretty much every SaaS solution needs this concept of users, groups, and then roles within those groups. And then over the kind of 8 years I've worked on this, I've deployed this at numerous startups, at tech firms, and even corporate tech companies. And this has handled well over $50 million of live transactions. So I know this code base is tested, it works, and it's going to work in production. Okay, so let's just go over the setup. So first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to git clone this project. All the setup instructions you can basically follow from the README. So I'm just going to do a git clone, and then I will open that in the IDE. Sweet. Great. So I've git cloned, and then I've effectively cd'd into it. This command uses find and sed to basically rename all the containers, all the DB names and stuff. So you only need to run this once per project, but I'm going to call this AB YT demo 424. Next, we're going to need obviously that local SSL certificate for SSL in local development. Then I'm going to generate a public and private RSA key. This is what we use for validating JWTs. Next, we're just going to copy the env.example to env. That's because all of the basic setup instructions or all the basic environment variables we can work with. Then we're going to do npm install and docker compose up. So what this does, that will do the npm installs. We have all the local node packages, but it will also compile the node 24 image to actually run the code here. So while that's just building and setting up, I'll just quickly go over the containers because it's actually really simple. So there's only 3 containers. We've got the this is our node 24 container as described in this Docker file, and it just basically comes with Sequelize and NodeMon, just stuff like that pre-installed into it. But we've also got a MySQL DB. This way, persist all the data, and then we have a Nginx container as well, which just proxies all of the requests to it over to the node 24 container. So it looks like everything's set up. MySQL is ready for connections. The proxy is ready to go, and the actual API itself is set up. It's listening and it's connected to the MySQL DB. Brilliant. So if we just drag that there, next we're going to want to let's run npm run exec db refresh. What does this do? So this will in that local development database that we've got, we want to set up the database structure and obviously insert some data into it. So in this project, the database structure is all defined in code. You'll find that in SRC database migrations. And this is where we define those tables. This is the users table, for example. And here's the groups table. And then the data that we're going to insert into that database just for local development only is all contained in the SRC database seeders directory. And as you can see, this is the user that we're going to insert into that database. We can check that work correctly by if we open up the Table Plus, we can see that all of those tables have been created as we expected. So before we actually start messing around with the API, let's do this final command here, which is npm run exec test. What this will do is this will set up another unique database within that same database container, but it won't touch the development database that you have. And it will insert all that seeded data and use mocker.js to run through all of these tests. So we ran through the tests, it's all passed, excellent. So when we want to actually, you'll find in the project there is an OpenAPI spec file which you can, which basically describes all of the endpoints. Now in the src routes directory, you'll see that above every route there's a comment that has the decorator Swagger. What happens is when we run the command npm run exec OpenAPI spec, what this will do is this will use JSDoc to convert all of these comments into an actual Swagger file, as we can see here. The reason we want to do this is because then you can go to a website like editor.swagger.io and you can actually paste the endpoints in here, and now we can actually start interacting with the API. But before we can do that, we have to first make sure that we tell Safari or our browser to actually accept this self-signed SSL certificate, because obviously it's not a valid real certificate. We can do that by just going there and then visit this website, refresh, and that's loaded that fine, so that's good. In Swagger editor, we're just going to make sure we've selected the local development server. You'll see that there's the unsecured one, which is hitting it on 8888, but we want the HTTPS endpoint here. And now we can see all of the routes that this project comes with by default. So we're going to go to login, because obviously we want to log into this application. We're going to hit try it out, and you can see that the data from the seeder is already predefined here. It should all be provided for you. So we're just going to hit execute, and great, we've got a JWT back, and we're now going to go. Wow, that's really bad, because SmartBear is like a $1 billion company. Authorize, close. So now we've authorized and we've logged in. We can now go to the user endpoint. Now, as you can imagine, get user will get the current user. So you can see the request we're sending a get request to the user endpoint. We're providing that JWT as our authorization header. And as expected, we've returned the current user. But let's say we want to then modify the user. So I'm going to go to the post endpoint. We're going to hit try it out. And I'm going to set my first and last name to Anthony Budd. I'm going to execute that. The actual curl request with that fired, we sent a post request to the user endpoint. We provided our JWT as authorization header, and we provided this JSON payload. And as you can see, it's actually updated my name here. We go back to the get user. We can execute that, and we can see that then when we get the user through the get endpoint, that's still persisted. And if we open up Table Plus, we should be able to go to this user here, and you can see that the first name and last name that we updated through the API has been persisted in the database. Now, in this Swagger file, you actually see there's actually a range of other routes and stuff that I provided. Again, this is all out the box. So this is things like the routes for enabling multi-factor authentication, for updating the password. But there's also a range of other endpoints for groups. So you can get a group by ID, update groups, invite users to the group, update users' roles, and then obviously remove users from those groups as well. And there's obviously a full, all of the required auth functionality as well, which is things like login, sign up, forgot password, reset password, and then invite users by their email address. So I hope this video has been useful. I hope it's been a bit better than the first one. I'm going to be making some more of these over the next few weeks. If you have any questions or comments about this project, please don't hesitate to add a comment or create a GitHub issue.